Next up on the agenda is presentations. So we have, as I mentioned before, State of the Port update. I will be introducing our speakers first, and Sophia will manage the question and answer portion once the presentations conclude. So our first speaker is Beth Ann Rooney. Beth Ann has served as Director of the Port Department at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey since May of 2022. She oversees the management, operation, and ongoing development of the major marine terminal facilities in the Port of New York and New Jersey, the largest and busiest seaport on the East Coast. As port director, she's responsible for managing nearly 400 million annual budget, advancing major capital programs, increasing cargo and passenger volumes, and fostering safe, secure, sustainable, and innovative practices focused on strengthening the port's contribution to the regional economy. Our second speaker is John Nardi, who has served as president of the New York Shipping Association since June of 2013. He previously served as the executive vice president and played a key role in the association's 2012 bargaining committee during its 12-month negotiation period with the International Longshoremen's Association. These deliberations ultimately resulted in a strong 6-year contract agreement, followed by 2 additional 6-year agreements in 2018 and 2024. Throughout these agreements, the port has seen record growth and has hired more than 1,500 new longshore workers, and 500 of them are military veterans. So, Beth Ann, if you could please get us started, the floor is now yours.
All right, awesome. Just want to do a mic check. We good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, great. Thank you, Stephen, for that introduction, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here again. I think if we went back in NJTPA's records, this is probably at least the 8th or 9th year in review that I'm doing with NJTPA. So happy to be among you again. Next slide. So just to take a look back at 2025 in terms of the numbers, most of what we're going to talk about today is associated with the container volume, but we are a lot more than just containers. Last year, we did 8.9 million TEUs. Again, for frame of reference, a TEU being a 20-foot long by 8-foot wide by 8-foot tall box. Of those, 719,000 of them left the region by rail. That's an important number because the rest of them are moving in and out of the facility by truck. We are predominantly a truck port. 85% of our volume stays within about 250 miles of our port facilities, and that's because we have the consuming public right in our backyard. Last year, we did 365,000 automobiles, which is a significant drop-off of about 12% from the previous year, most of it associated with tariff-related impacts. At our Port Liberty Terminal, Cape Liberty Terminal in Bayonne, we did 846,000 passengers going out on cruise ships. But keep in mind that there are 2 additional cruise terminals in the region, one in Manhattan and one in Brooklyn. So it's close to 2.5 million, passengers that are taking cruise out of the Port of New York and New Jersey. And then finally, last year, we did 3.1 million metric tons of bulk cargo. So that's everything from the cement that you see in these silos here to road salt, scrap metal, Belgian block, as well as edible oils and your orange juice concentrate. Next slide. So to put the container volumes in perspective, this is the projection. You've probably seen this slide before. This is what we anticipated when we completed the Port Master Plan in 2019 in terms of what our containerized volume would look like in the I'd say 2050 range. We projected that we would be somewhere between 12 and 17 million TEUs moving through the Port of New York and New Jersey. That's obviously quite a big difference in volume. The 12 million is based on really focusing hot and heavy on our local market, whereas the 17 million is going guns a-blazing on both our local market and the discretionary market. The discretionary market being the cargo that can go into the Port of New York and New Jersey, or go into Norfolk or Los Angeles and Long Beach in order to reach the middle of the country. So for planning purposes, we're planning on 14 million, kind of splitting the baby. So we're planning on 14 million Ts by 2050. As you can see in the pandemic timeframe, we were above the highest part of our projection. And right now, we're a little bit above where we expected to be. So we finished 2025 at 4.3% over our forecast. Next slide. Just to give you a sense that today there is no more normalization of our cargo volume. Pre-pandemic, pre-tariff wars, pre-war in the Middle East, there was a norm to the way that containerized volume came into the Port of New York and New Jersey. That has all been thrown out. Where we're no longer seeing things broken into this Chinese New Year restocking, Christmas season, and then the seasonal slowdown. You can see in 2020, the light gray line, everything fell out in the early months of the pandemic, and then there was a sharp recovery. Then at 2022, the darker gray line, we were 28% above where we were in 2019, and then it began to normalize again. But the normalization is devoid of the seasonality that we were traditionally used to. Next slide. So in terms of big accomplishments, I would say for last year, we welcomed our first 16,800 plus TEU vessel, the 00 Iris. This is important because when we were doing the Bayonne Bridge, and we were raising the Bayonne Bridge and deepening the channels to 50 feet, we were unable to handle ships larger than 9,000 TEUs in Elizabeth, Newark, and Staten Island. So today, just 5 years later, to be handling the 16,800, more, almost double the capacity of what we were handling. And about a third of the ships that we're handling today were unable to use the channels prior to us completing the Bayonne Bridge and the deepening project. Also notable last year was we entered into a 30+ year extension with APM Terminals. You'll see that we negotiated a 30-year extension with APM in April, and then we did a similar 33-year extension with MAR Terminals in December. That now leaves all of our container terminals with leases that carry us through somewhere between 2047 and 2062, 2063 timeframe. We did enter into and finalize a purchase and sale agreement in Bayonne. I put this on the list because it is part of the City of Bayonne's master plan to bring a ferry service to the former Military Ocean Terminal Bayonne Peninsula. So we sold to the City of Bayonne a little parcel of land on the south side of the former Montby Peninsula so that they could put a ferry service in place there. We held a cold chain summit. Again, important and notable because we are looking to increase the amount of cold. So it's either just temperature controlled or frozen or flash frozen product coming directly into the Port of New York and New Jersey, because a large portion of the I'll say, edible products that are consumed in the New York region, New York, New Jersey region, are not coming here via ships directly. They're going to ports south of us and then being trucked up the turnpike. So we're looking to capture more of that market and keep that cargo in New York, New Jersey. Port Newark Container Terminal completed a major solar project where now close to 50% of their terminal is powered by solar, and they have the ability to backfeed the city of Newark. Bayonne, Port Liberty Bayonne completed the construction of a third berth. So they're now able to handle 3 ultra-large container vessels concurrently. We opened up an electric vehicle truck charging station with level 3 chargers in Port Newark back in July. We've got the capability of charging 8 trucks at a time. And while we have not seen great use of those yet, we are expecting there to be an increase in electric trucks, hopefully in the not too distant future. We have agreed with the Army Corps of Engineers on our 55-foot deepening project. And again, you may recall, I've briefed this group in the past that before our 50-foot deepening project was completed, we needed to go to 55 feet. So we are now well underway with the Army Corps of Engineers in the planning for deepening 28 miles of federal channels to 55 feet and doing selective widening in certain locations. Similar to the rail summit, similar to the cold chain summit, we held a rail summit, again, looking to get more cargo off of the roads and onto rail. I'm sure you're aware that the Port Authority completed our 10-year capital plan that was adopted by our board in December. And in doing so, there's now a $45 billion capital plan that will carry the agency through the 2035 timeframe. And then finally, we had received a $450+ million grant award from the Department of Environmental the US EPA, the Clean Ports Program. That money is all being funneled to a variety of our terminal operators and tenants. By the time the expenditure is completed, 25% of our cargo handling equipment fleet will be replaced. The old diesel equipment will be replaced with an electric or alternate clean fuel. There is another part of that Clean Ports program that will help fund electric drayage trucks. And there is also a portion of it for community outreach and community benefits that we're working closely with a number of the environmental justice and community organizations in our host cities. Next slide. We'll skip over these. You guys will get the slide deck afterwards. So any questions that you might have, I'd be happy to answer if you have any questions about these particular ones. Next slide. Also, big part of what we do, we are in a competitive business. So cargo that comes to the Port of New York and New Jersey has a choice to come here or to go somewhere else. So we have a small but mighty business development team that works both locally in the region and beyond in major cities, including the Lehigh Valley, Chicago, Pittsburgh, out in Long Island, upstate New York, and Buffalo, to hold events and to meet with individual shippers and customers that are choosing or have a choice to do business in the Port of New York and New Jersey. In many instances, we work closely with the likes of New Jersey EDA, Economic Development Authority, and Choose New Jersey to attract businesses to the Port of New York and New Jersey. Next slide. Uh, John and I chair the Council on Port Performance. The Council on Port Performance has been now in operation for about 12 years. The council brings together the entire supply chain ecosystem, everybody from organized labor to the ocean carriers, rail carriers, truckers, warehouse operators, MPOs, including NJTPA, and thank you, Jacob, for participating with us. All of the federal agencies like Customs and Coast Guard and the Maritime Administration. And we're designed to help stay ahead of issues so that we are proactive rather than reactive. And one of the things that we worked heavily on last 2 years really, was to look at appointment systems that our container terminals, two of our container terminals are using to identify both the benefits and the challenges, and to come up with recommendations that if another terminal was to choose to move to appointment systems, here's the minimum performance standards that we would like to see. And out of that discussion about appointments also came recommendations on how other sectors in the supply chain could be improved in order to help make the port more efficient and fluid and productive. So we're now working, in fact, we're meeting this Wednesday, and we are working on the top 5 recommendations that the sector representatives had come up with. And we will be starting work groups looking to come up with implementation recommendations on how we can address those. So continued good work on the part of the Council on Port Performance. It's not always easy. We literally are asking folks to completely change the way they have traditionally done business to make it better for the good of the whole in the long run. Next slide. Again, I think you've seen this slide in the past, but our port's vision is to be world-class, being efficient and reliable, and serving our local, national, and regional markets. In order to do so, we're focused on optimizing the efficiency of cargo movement, maximizing land use and property utilization. So that speaks to the fact, for example, that we recently sold off a portion of the property for the Bayonne ferry terminal. It speaks to now having leases with the container terminals for 30 plus more years. I did not mention it yet, but we are getting out of the business of supporting Belgian block and scrap metal at our facilities because, quite frankly, they're nuisance cargoes. They beat the hell out of our roads and our berths, and material gets dropped into the water, and they're just not good for the Port of New York and New Jersey. So we're phasing out of those businesses. Phasing out of those businesses also supports the next key objective, which is minimizing our environmental impact. We remain, in spite of the headwinds that I think we've all been getting from the administration, we remain committed as an agency to being net zero by 2050, and we are well on our way to doing that. Part of that also includes maximizing the amount of rail freight utilization. So we have the capacity in our rail terminals to handle 1.5 million lifts per year. As you saw, we did just over 700,000 last year. So we've got more than half of the system's capacity that we are looking to fill up. One of the things that we're monitoring closely now is the proposal for the Norfolk Southern UP merger and the idea of a transcontinental railroad. And will that be more beneficial to us to move the line of demarcation, further to the west, or will it be more beneficial for our West Coast partners moving that line of demarcation further to the east. The railroads are expected to make a filing, the next filing to the STB next week, and then that opens up an 18-month period of comment and review. Everything that we do, we want to make sure that we are building resilient infrastructure as we implement the capital plan, and in doing so, continue to build the workforce of the future. Most of us in this business did not choose to enter into it, but fell into it. And now more than ever, the supply chain, is in the news, and there's a lot of interest in young people. So we're looking to harness that interest both for the blue collar jobs and the white collar jobs. Next slide. If you are interested, and again, these slides will be presented to you, you can access our full strategic plan by clicking on this QR code. And that will take you through the individual initiatives that we are working on that are associated with each of those key objectives. Next slide. So focused areas for this year, 2026. I expect that we will be opening as a pilot program. We will be opening a hydrogen fueling station. So this is again a project that came to us from the New Jersey EDA in partnership with Rutgers University. But there will be 6 hydrogen-fueled drayage trucks that will be deployed to the region, and we will host a hydrogen fueling station right here in Port Newark. And then we will work with Rutgers and EDA to evaluate hydrogen as compared to electric, as compared to diesel, or other fuel types. We're working to put additional current meters and water level sensors in the harbor that will help optimize the movement of the vessels, as time is money, and we want to be able to move the vessels as quickly as possible when they arrive in the harbor, and as soon as they're done loading and unloading, and the ability to have real-time water level and current sensors, real-time information from those sensors is instrumental in being able to do that. We're moving forward with permitting all of the food trucks that are in the port. We have an RFEI out for 9 acres of either development or divestiture in the Military Ocean Terminal Bayonne. We're going out with best and final offer requests in the next week or two, and I expect that we will be able to make a decision on that by the end of the year. If you've been at the facility recently, you've seen that there is more wayfinding signs throughout the facility. We're launching an anti-hustling program. If you use the Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal, you know that you get approached by all sorts of folks claiming to be legitimate drivers, and we want to make sure that we provide a safe ride for you as you come back from your vacation, very similar to hopefully what you've seen at our airports. But that anti-hustling program at Cape Liberty Cruise Terminal is being rolled out now for the peak of the cruise season. We have an effort underway to modernize our rules and regulations for how you use our facilities. And then crazy to think that we're doing this, but we are providing access on the Port Jersey Peninsula to a fishing pier, and we'll also be installing static binoculars for visitors to that peninsula. Next slide. Workforce development, I spoke about. We're going to continue to hold job fairs and career awareness events this year. We are doing our 2nd year of the Trucker Small Business Academy to encourage small businesses to get into the business, and providing the help for them to do that. and also providing community college work internships. In fact, we have a young man who just started a week ago Monday, and we take interns throughout the school year for shorter periods of time, as well as taking up to 6 interns from the local colleges over the summer for a 12-week period. I'm going to come back to FIFA and Sailforth in a minute. We are working on a stevedore licensing program, and then mostly on the technology side, looking to upgrade our communications infrastructure in Port Newark and Elizabeth, where throughout the facility, and it is in part encumbered by stacks of containers that are, 6, 7, 8 stories high. But our cell phone and Wi-Fi coverage in Port Newark and Elizabeth is abysmal. So we're working to put new infrastructure in place this year to correct that. Next slide. So jumping very quickly to Sailforth 250, and I used executive privilege with Jacob to throw this into the presentation, predominantly because there's going to be a big impact and not too many people know about it, although it did appear to make national news now over the weekend. So let me show you quickly what's going to be happening in the region. Next slide. So Sailforth 250, celebrating the country's 250th birthday, will take place here in New York Harbor from July 1 to July 9. On July 4th, there will be several different events taking place. One starting with an International Navy review, and we will have approximately 50 ships from up to 40 different countries, including almost 20 from the US Navy, that will be anchored at various places in New York Harbor from the Verrazano Narrows Bridge up to the George Washington Bridge. Starting early in the morning, a senior government official who is not confirmed yet but believed to be President Trump will be on a US Navy destroyer that will leave the Manhattan Cruise Terminal, go north to the George Washington Bridge, turn around, and then start parading, moving down the Hudson River to the Verrazano Narrows. As the US Navy vessel passes all of these ships, they will render a salute and honors to the reviewing platform. When the Navy review is completed, there will be a parade of tall ships. And there are, again, approximately 50 tall ships, Class A and Class B tall ships, from 40 plus different nations that will then begin to parade up the Hudson River from the Verrazano Narrows to the George Washington Bridge, turn around, and either return to an anchorage or return to berth. While those ships the tall ships are parading up the Hudson River, they are now talking about upwards of 200 fixed and rotary wing aircraft, US Navy, US Air Force, and foreign Navy and Air Force that will be flying over the Hudson River while the parade of ships is going on below in the river. There'll be a break at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon until fireworks on the East River and on the Hudson River. It is Macy's 50th anniversary of fireworks, so they plan to have 5 or 6 barges on the East River, their largest ever. And at the same time, there will be 2 or 3 barges off of Liberty State Park that will be setting off fireworks concurrently. Then from July 5th to July 8th, there will be public visitations to many of these visiting vessels, as well as onboard receptions. Next slide. This just gives you a sense as to, what the Class A and Class B tall ships are all about. Next slide. This goes through, again, a lot of the activities that I just spoke about, but breaks it down a little bit more by day. As we are beginning to have folks, local public, visiting many of these ships that have arrived for the celebration of our country, on July 5th, there's also going to be the Round of 16 FIFA match up at the Meadowlands. So there's been a lot in the news in the last week or so about how folks can and cannot get up to the Meadowlands. There was a proposal over the weekend that ferry traffic could be added in order to get people across the river and up to the Meadowlands. That is all yet still to be worked out. Next slide. I believe I went through all that. Next slide. This overlays everything that's going to be happening FIFA related, starting with the first match here on June 17th, I believe, all the way through the final game, which is not until July 19th, I think. Next slide. This gives you a sense as to what the naval anchorages are going to look like. So by frame of reference, if you're not used to nautical charts, all the way down here at the bottom of the red arrow in the center of the channel is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And each of these circles is one of what will be 46 different anchorage areas that have been identified between the Verrazano Narrows all the way up the Hudson River, past the George Washington Bridge to the University Heights Yonkers area. And in each of those anchorage areas are going to be several tall ships and foreign and U.S. Navy ships that are anchored. In addition, what you don't see here are the spectator zones. So the Sailforth 250 organization is making available up to 10,000 tickets for spectator craft that will be able to anchor in the harbor and watch all of the festivities. And two of those spectator areas are up here in I'll say the northwest quadrant of this slide, off of the former Military Ocean Terminal Bayonne and the Port Jersey Peninsula. So there'll be about 6,000 spectator craft anchored here. Now, the Coast Guard is not shutting down the port, but the tugboats and the pilots who are needed to help navigate the commercial ships are largely going to be tied up handling all of the Navy and the tall ship vessels. Next slide. All right, so my final closing thought before handing it over to John is that if you have the opportunity, put your home or apartment on Airbnb and get out of Dodge for the period of FIFA and Sailforth 250, because it is going to be chaotic. Just one last thought on the Sailforth activities in relation to the port is that 4 of the match days are on weekdays, and those days are likely to impact the movement of trucks in and out of the port facilities. So I know there's a call today, I believe, with New Jersey DOT about any modifications and notifications that would be made to the truckers. This coming Friday, I'm meeting with all of our terminal operators and we'll raise the question of, based on what's going to be happening with FIFA, do we consider making some modification to the gate hours so that trucks are not trying to compete on the roadways with all the rest of the chaos in and around FIFA. So happy to take questions after John has had the opportunity to present. Over to you, John.
Okay. Beth does all the heavy lifting with the stats. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Shaw and Jacob, for this opportunity. There's been several of these in the past. I just put this up to show that we're the Shipping Association of New York and New Jersey, and 8 years ago we were the New York Shipping Association. So I put that up all the time because we had to change our name to really represent who we are and what we do. The 90% of the port business, from my perspective, occurs in New Jersey. So everybody always asks, well, why don't you call it the Shipping Association of New Jersey and New York? But, we'll take it a step at a time. That'll be the next DBA. So if you can turn to the next slide there, Jacob. Yeah, I'm going to briefly speak about the longshore contract that we went through the past year and a half and how that affects some critical problems up and down the coast, absenteeism and productivity, and then touch on the economic impact of the port industry as a whole in our region. So 2025, this is more from a labor perspective I'm giving this, or a continued shift in business amongst the 5 terminals in the port, the 5 major terminals in the port. This really happened because ocean carriers, they have partnerships, and some of those partnerships have dissolved, and they've created new partnerships. So you had MSC and Maersk, 2 of the largest companies, the 2 largest companies in the world. They were sharing ships, and now MSC is going on their own. But then Hapag-Lloyd teamed up with Maersk, and you had CMA CGM purchasing the terminals in Bayonne and Staten Island. And the Port Authority flip-flopped ownership of terminals in Staten Island and in Brooklyn. And how this really affects the labor is because shipping lines move to different terminals, the labor typically doesn't move with them. So sometimes it creates shortages of labor, sometimes it creates surpluses of labor, and the reason that happens is really from a seniority perspective. You gain seniority at your home terminal, and if you shift to a different terminal, then you become the least senior person there. So just a little background there. 2025, really interesting year. Had a lot of challenges. I think, Beth touched on most of them with the seasonality that we face. It used to be that after Christmas, things would be quiet, and then they'd ramp up until Lunar New Year's, and then that would happen, and there'd be a peak then, and then the volume would settle down again, and then it would slowly ramp up until we got to the back to school season. And then after that, we would have the Christmas holiday season afterwards. And now we don't have seasons anymore with freight, because when it comes to the tariffs and the on again, off again aspect of it, and because of all the geopolitical issues going on, we've really lost that seasonality and predictability, which makes it difficult to predict where we need the labor and when, but that's what we do. Things seem to have settled down on the carrier front, although Hapag-Lloyd has just announced that they're purchasing Zim, which is the National Shipping Company of Israel. So we'll see how that pans out, if it pans out. Again, it really started earlier last year with the Houthis and not being able to use the Suez Canal. There's a lot of services that come directly to New York and New Jersey via the Suez that really couldn't use the canal. I mean, I don't know how they're surviving over there without any volume through there, but they would have to go around Africa to come here, and they do. So it was a very confusing year on the shipping side. A lot of changes to take place from a volume perspective. I think we're about flat compared to the year before. Our fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th. So I'm going to start back on the labor discussion. going back to October 1st, 2024. And that's when we had the 3-day strike in New York, if you would all recall that. That ended with an agreement on wages. And then we had until January 15th to conclude the balance of the contract, right? And we did that. So, and then the contract wasn't ratified until March 2025. So it's just been a little over a year that we've had the contract in place. And just for people's, education in each port, if you don't know, there's 2 contracts. There's a master contract and a local contract. The master contract is what was being actually struck up and down the whole coast. The master contract is the same in all ILA ports, and it mainly dictates the conditions for wages, automation, healthcare, and jurisdiction. And as you probably remember, automation was the most controversial issue. And it's certainly going to be an evergreen issue going forward, not just for our industry, but for many. But even more so for the Port of New York, New Jersey, because it's generally felt that automation and technology provides you more cargo density at the terminals, so you're better able to make use of the land that we have available to us, and we don't really have much surplus land here and there to develop. So we just have to find a way to make better use of how we handle that same footprint. So, then there's the cost of labor versus the cost of automation. Automation is not cheap, and it has a shelf life. But labor sees automation as an existential issue. So, again, it's not just our industry; it's many. It's AI. It's robots. So this is going to be an issue, a point of contention in future contracts. Resolving the master contract involved, it was actually in the end handled through the White House with 2 different administrations, with one president weighing directly in. They were both very much sided with labor on the issue. And, we finally reached an agreement on what types of machinery could be used, but they all had to use human intervention. That was the master contract. So, it was, we thought that when President Trump won the election, that there would be more, he'd be more favorable for the business side, but it turned out to be just the opposite, which was a surprise to everybody. Turns out that President Trump and the president of the ILA were from the same neighborhood, and I guess that's how things work around here. So anyway, then we had the local contract, right? The local contract mainly dictates pension levels, vacation and holiday, productivity, absenteeism, and local working conditions and manning. But really, productivity and absenteeism were the main focus here and in other ports, but really so much more in New York and New Jersey. It just so happened that the local contract was actually negotiated almost 2 years before the master contract, and we did that between the Shipping Association and the ILA to show all the other ports that, hey, if a port as complex as New York and New Jersey can resolve their local contracts, then you other ports up and down the coast from Maine to Texas should be able to resolve yours as well. So we tried to set an example there, and in some places it worked, in other places it didn't. There's still some ports that don't have a local contract. Philadelphia is one of them. They don't have a local contract, and then there's some smaller ports in the Gulf. But they continue to work. So again, productivity and absenteeism were the main focus here. And we talk about absenteeism. The world's changed. Work ethic has changed. It was really compounded by COVID. We also had a problem at the port that for a while we didn't have enough labor, and we would have people not show up for jobs, but we didn't have enough labor. So you can't penalize somebody who's you're working them to death pretty much. And, because we couldn't get enough labor in the port. But fortunately, the state police, New Jersey State Police have taken over the port oversight for New Jersey, and they've done a much better job on moving people through the system to vet them to become longshoremen. So we haven't had a labor shortage problem like we used to have when the Waterfront Commission of New York was running the whole port. So that was a tremendous benefit forward. But still contractually, we had to put strict absentee rules in place. I mean, absenteeism, it's inevitable, things happen, right? However, We say if you leave yourself in the system and are assigned a job, you have to show up for a job. People would see, they would be assigned jobs, and if they didn't like that job, they didn't show up. And we really had no teeth in our absentee program. And, many of our operations are production line. So if one or two workers being out at a minimum, it slows down the whole line, right? So then you have, 30, 40 people involved in the whole operation that are affected, right? So we put in a new absentee program. It only makes sense if you're the union and you're focused on stemming the tide of automation. The least thing that needs to happen is people need to show up for work. So they agreed jointly on this program, and we look at our absenteeism now, which is down by about 50% compared to other locations.
John, I think you're muted.
Yeah, he's muted now, Jacob. John, you're muted, John.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. My system froze up. All right, I can't see you, but I guess you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, all right, apologize for that. So anyway, our absenteeism is down by 50%. So I think we've made tremendous progress there. In productivity, we have a policy with teeth in it now. We came up with a productivity program where the terminal operators or the gangs that work the ship need to meet certain levels, and if they don't meet those levels, then they will not get as much work as the gangs who meet the productivity levels that we have in the contract. And the early returns there is, we have about 80% of the business in Elizabeth and Newark, and their productivity is up somewhere between 4 and 10%, the average being 7%. The other ports, the other terminal locations are not as, they're not doing as well as improvement-wise as Newark and Elizabeth. However, they started from a higher level already. So these are all great developments. We do have some challenges on the labor side in the port, though. I just don't want to say everything is all rosy. We have difficulty getting workers to other parts of the port because it's so expensive to get around. I did a study that showed, if I were to leave my house in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and go to Brooklyn for a job, if you take the cost of using your car and the $35 in tolls, it costs you about $94 for an 80-mile round trip. And then if you consider when you work in Brooklyn and you live in New Jersey, you get of course, you pay federal tax, you pay New Jersey tax, you pay New York State tax, you pay New York City tax. And then if you go to the cruise terminal, you also pay congestion pricing. So because of that, we have a tremendous problem of getting people to cross the river and go to Brooklyn or Manhattan for work. But we're working on that. We're trying to bring new people into the industry who are from those areas. So they don't, it takes the commuting aspect out of what they need to do. A couple other quick points. We work, all the freight that comes in through the port ends up going to either a warehouse or a storefront or something. So the warehouse business and the port business are very, very interconnected. And we're starting a program this year dealing with NAIOP, the real estate, the Commercial Real Estate Association, trying to put together our terminal operations people and warehouse operations people so that they can find ways to better make use of the infrastructure that's out there. You know, we say, okay, well, we want to, people or truckers or entities want to open the gates later at the port. And we say that's great, but then they don't get used because the warehouses aren't open. So this has to all be done in sync. We're trying to see how we can do that. So we'll be working on that in 2026. And last but not least, I just wanted to point out the economic impact of the port industry. We do a study every year or every 3 years, and NJTPA participated this in the past, which shows the economic impact of the business generated by the port industry. So this last one, which was based on 2024 data, takes a while to collect the data. We have 277,000 jobs directly associated with the port, another 580,000 total jobs, 57 billion in personal income, 163 billion in business activity, and over 18 billion in federal, state, and local tax revenues. So you know, this business, in my opinion, is the fuel that, you know, primes the pump of the economic engine in the region. So, you know, I mean, if you look at the numbers, you know, we're saying 580,000 now. In 2022 is 564,000, but that was at the peak of COVID, where the volumes were just going off the charts. But compare that to 2019, 506,000, and then in 2016 it was 400,000, and in 2012 it was 296,000 jobs. So this business continues to grow with the volume of the port, and the investment that's done by my members and the Port Authority, and you know, the support groups or the support labor of the truckers and the warehouses, and the freight forwarders and all the entities in the supply chain that you know, continue to grow this business, which, you know, keeps the economic impact at a very high level. So the port needs to continue to evolve to maintain our preeminent position on the East Coast. We need to continue to be the economic engine for jobs, taxes, and infrastructure growth. And you know, based on what you've seen from Beth and what we're working on, we are certainly up to the challenge. We just have to get through 4th of July week this year with the Sailport 250. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for that. I'm gonna turn it over to Sophia to lead the Q&A. I know a couple questions popped up in the chat box. So
Yeah.
Sophia, it's all yours.
So we'll start with the questions in the chat box, and feel free to add them there. And also, if you want to unmute and ask a question after those, feel free. So the first question is for John, which is, what is the average starting salary of a longshoreman?
So there is no salary. They get paid per hour. So I think it's at $45 an hour right now. So, you know, the issue we have though is a starting salary is usually pretty low because you get the least amount of work as a new longshoreman. So it typically takes 5 to 8 years before you're, you know, entrenched in and you're getting your full allocation of hours. So, do your own math there if you want, if it's 2,000 hours, if it's 3,000 hours or 500 hours, right? Depending on how much work is available for those new people.
Okay, thank you. And there's a question from Michael about workshops and exercises at the port. Michael, could you clarify which workshops and exercises, as Beth asked in the chat?
Yes, I think that was on the page that I think Beth Ann was going to return to later on. It was workshop. I didn't see it very quickly, but it was workshops and exercises.
Oh, I would imagine that it is emergency response related. That one?
Yes, the tabletops.
Yeah, tabletop exercises. So a number of things that, go on year round in terms of tabletop exercises and drills. A lot of focus, and I'll say in the last couple of months of 2025 and coming into this year, have been FIFA and Sailforth related. We are also doing hosting tours, vessel orientation tours for firefighters, law enforcement, EMS personnel. We are working to get a marine firefighting course that is both NFPA compliant, Pro Board certified, ultimately approved by the New Jersey Division of Fire Safety, and then rolling that out. And then, we've done everything from cyber related drills and exercises to active shooter, mass casualty on cruise ships. It runs the gamut.
There's
Thank
an
you.
area maritime security committee headed up by the Coast Guard. And all the law enforcement agencies who touch the port participate in that. So there's a tremendous amount of coordination on that front.
Thank you.
All right, we have two questions from Kamal. The first is about, I think he heard that the Port Authority is no longer allowing construction waste, and if so, where it's going, but I think that might be about the metal scrap you were talking about. And then the second question is, what are the larger proposed projects in the capital plan?
Yeah, so with regards to scrap metal, really as a commodity, there are other scrap metal facilities within the region and outside of the region, all on privately owned land. That is now handling the scrap metal, or will be handling all of the scrap metal. I'll say, for example, that EMR, Eastern Metal Recycling, who used to be in Port Newark, now has a facility on the south shore of Staten Island. Sims Metal Management is phasing out of the scrap metal business here in Port Newark, and they have an existing site in Greenville, Jersey City area. With regards to the capital plans for the Port Department, we will focus on finishing out the Port Street Corridor Improvement Project on the north end of the facility. As you're probably familiar, we've got two ways in and out of the Newark Elizabeth complex, one on the north, one on the south. The northern end has been under construction for the last 2 years, and we've got just about 2 years left to go on it. But we were, at the point where roadways that were constructed, in the 40s and 50s, when trucks were much smaller and much lighter, just don't work for the trucks, the length and the size and the weight that we have today. The Corbin Street ramp, which comes over the turnpike, over the rail lines, and down into the main arterial roadway, had been taken down from 2 lanes to 1. And ultimately we needed to take the entire bridge, out of service. So we are within days of the final structural piece of that being put in, and we need turnpike closures in order to do that. And I'm told that by Mother's Day, the ramp will be open. In addition to the Port Street Corridor Improvement Project, this capital plan is focused on berth and wharf repairs and select replacement. We'll be doing a complete replacement of berth 10 through 12 in Port Newark, again, that had been, destroyed by the Belgian bloc. We'll be doing a rail connection, the southbound rail connection, and then also doing a replacement of our pump house and our water tanks. And our pump house and our water tanks provide both the potable water and the fire protection life safety system water throughout the facility. But when those pump houses and water tanks were first placed, they were smack dab in the middle of a container terminal. And it's just not the right location for them to be in modern and efficient container terminal operations.
Thank you. And then a question from Jacob is, for both of you, I'd say, is are we getting closer to 24/7 operations, and what are some key challenges?
Go ahead, John.
Well, yeah, I think I touched on it already. I mean, first of all, the ships work 24/7. They have been for a long time. The gates are typically restricted to weekdays, and they're open from anywhere from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. or 9 p.m., depending on the terminal. But the challenge we have there is, you know, it's a supply chain issue, right? It's not, you know, the terminals can be open, they will be open if we wanted to go to a 24/7, but until the warehouse operation becomes 24/7 and truckers have places to bring the freight to when they pick it up, and when the trucking community also, you know, implements a 24/7 type operation, which is not easy. They have a lot of restrictions on hours of service and things like that. So, so when, I don't know, but is it possible? It's absolutely possible, but we're going to have to change the way we do business in this region, because we can't continue to share the infrastructure with the commuters and with the school buses and with, you know, everybody's using the road during the day when, you know, there's probably a good 8 hours in the middle of the night where nobody's using the infrastructure, and that's what we have. So it's, if we can't find more land, then we're going to have to make better use of the hours that are available to us.
Yeah, hard to build on what John has already said, except that the warehousing community and the availability of the hours at the warehouse, because today most warehouses require that a trucker show up by 2 or 3 p.m., except in rare instances, in order to either one, get the truck unloaded and get their workers home, you know, by 5 or 6 p.m., or they do their receiving on the international side during the day, and then they do the delivery on the domestic side by night. So they cross dock, you know, operation. So that's part of the business that has to change. We've also heard that there are many municipalities that have restrictions in place, and we know this from those conversations that we've all been having with NAIOP and the commercial property owners and whatnot. But one of the biggest challenges that we have, and I would ask, you know, the 13 counties, you know, that are on the line, is we are having the darndest time identifying where the cargo goes to and where the warehouses are. You know, we're cobbling that information together from every means that we possibly can. But we haven't, you know, been able to find a single source, you know, even through chambers of commerce or whatnot, to identify all of the warehouses, you know, in your counties. It will be hard to have a supply chain conversation with everybody who has to be involved in changing behavior when we don't know exactly where the cargo is going to.
So Beth Ann, I know in Morris County, I'm pretty sure our planning and preservation group would have that information and inventory of that. And having also been a local municipal official, I see the problems with trying to site warehouses.
Sure.
And the public outcry against them, and then if they are approved, restrictions on the hours of operation. So it's a real problem.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and those are conversations that, you know, we'd love to have, because, and I understand it, people don't want warehouses in their backyard. They don't want the trucks, you know, and everything that goes along with it, but they want the Amazon package, right? So to me, this is largely an educational issue. And I'm not suggesting that it will be easy at all, but we've got to start having the conversation. So if there, is a similar, county level organization, and maybe Jacob, you could potentially, gather that information, for us, and we'll go to those individual offices at the county level if that's what it would take. But, if maybe NJTPA could help us identify at each county, where that information would be housed, it would be very helpful.
Yes, we can definitely help with that. And
Excellent.
just to follow up on the 24/7. So you're aiming for 14 million TEUs. That's kind of the out year of the latest plan. Is
Right.
14 million possible without shifting to,
Absolutely not.
yeah.
Yeah, so we don't look, and we don't know that we're going to get to 24/7. We are in the process of kind of calculating, when do we need to add 4 hours? And then we have to have conversations to say, does it make sense, as John said, at the earlier part of the day versus the later part of the day? And when you reach this threshold, you got to have 4 more hours. When you reach this volume of containers, you need to have 6 more hours, or add a 6th day. So we're trying to do I'll say the fancy math in order to figure all that out. But it's not going to be where 1/3 of the hours today, and we're suddenly going to flip a switch and go to 24/7. There's going to have to be a phase in to longer hours, because all of the ILA labor, will have to be augmented. The truckers are limited in their hours of service. There'll be more truckers that are needed. If warehouses are not working 2 shifts today, there's going to need to be, more warehouses. Or there needs to be truck parking for different purposes than all of the conversation nationally about truck parking. All of those conversations are about over-the-road drivers, not about drayage drivers. But if a drayage company pulls a container from a terminal at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and he's run out of hours of service, we need to park that container in a secure yard, so that somebody can come in the morning and pick it up and bring it, to the customer.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from people on the line?
I'm not seeing any. Are there any committee members that would like to ask a question? All right. Well, once again, Beth Ann and John, thank you very much for that presentation and discussion. I always find it fascinating. Never really knew too much about the port operation until being on this committee. So